Beep, beep. Your journey into the world of rolling bass lines will start with MIDI programming. All you're going to do is go into your DAW, right click, and you're going to go 1/16. Set up a 1/16 pattern on the root key of the scale, which for us will be in G minor. And I program my MIDI notes to be at the G3 range. What that tells me is that I need to program my synth to go down to -3 in order to have optimal range, in order to get a bass that's going to have a good amount of low end. From there, the second most important thing to do is to turn your retrig on, or turn the R and phase of serum all the way to 0%. A retrig will make this wavetable start at the same position, same phase every single time. What this means is, if you notice as I move the phase, there's this yellow line that you see. Now, this yellow line dictates where we're going to start at. Now, if I increase my rand phase, aka turn my retrig off, you're going to notice there's this yellow outcast that starts to appear. This is making it so that the phase can start anywhere in that yellow outcast, okay? So the problem with this is that when we're making rolling bass lines, a lot of the times we want something that sounds solid and will always give power. If we don't turn this down, we're allowing the phase to start at anywhere it wants, and then we can get basses that sound rather like one moment they're strong and then the other moment they sound weak. Filter. Now, a lot of the stuff we're doing here is called subtractive synthesis. We're essentially taking away from the initial saw sound. Filters will usually either one, get rid of highs, get rid of lows. For this, we're going to utilize MG low 12, 18, or 24. This is going to stand for low pass. Our high frequency get cut out. From there, we're going to go into envelope 2 instead of envelope 1. Now, envelope 2, we're going to utilize it as a modulation, which means just think a knob turner. We're going to use this guy to tell this cutoff that we wanted to move up and then come back down. So in order to do that, we're going to route envelope 2 to the cutoff. From there, you're going to get your modulation amount, which is that blue outline. You can click and then drag it back down to your desired results. Now, from here, this is where it can start getting finicky. You know, a lot of the stuff we're doing is simple, but simplicity is hard, because if we mess up anything further here, you're not going to get the rolling bass. From here, we're going to lower down our sustain, some decay. And you can see we are now getting the rolling bass. Now, notice that if I put my decay too high up, I lose that the dynamics, as we would say, the punch in the rolling bass. But if I go too low, we also lose the punch and we get something more of a perk subby fiasco. And this is where it can get very finicky with these patches. So from here, I'm just going to lower the decay to somewhere where I like. I'm going to go my envelope 1, which is the amp envelope. This is the amp that controls the volume output, not the filter cutoff, okay? Now from here, we're going to lower down the sustain a bit just to introduce dynamics. We want there to be a change in volume as well, going from high up to somewhat lower. This creates that sort of look to it, which it gives us a bow, bow. And if it's tight, boop, boop. And that's how we get the roll. So we're going to lower the sustain down, decay back. This is going to stand for dB. All you have to know is the higher the number, the more strict the filter becomes. Notice how it cuts out more highs the higher I go. That's all that is for. So I want something more of a snappier sort of filter, so I'm going to go for a higher number. From here, all we really have to do is add a bit of distortion. Now, fair warning, the more distortion you add, the more you're going to kill the bass. You also get rid of the beautiful dynamics of the roll that we've created. However, in return, you get more of a beefier, more of an angrier sort of bass. Now, if you want, you can grab envelope 2 and also route it to your drive, move it back, and do it like so to maintain some of the dynamic. There we go. Now, this is the first rolling bass line we're creating in this video. It's a very basic one. It's a very safe one that you can utilize in techno, tech house, psytrance. A few variations you add for each genre, but as long as you understand the basis of this, then you are set to go in creating bass lines. Now, when programming rolling bass lines, the first pattern you're going to know is the floor one, which is just playing all the root notes. Now, if you're making techno music, there's a lot of influence happening right now from the trance days, which we would like to call gallops, aka when you have a rolling bass, what we would do in trance in order to get this really cool is we would grab this middle note, which is on the offbeat 1.1.3, and shift it up an octave, and then we get something that sounds like this. I'm sure many of you guys have heard it. If you didn't listen to trance, you've heard it in some of the modern techno that is occurring right now. You can hear it in some latent Giorgiani, some high-low, some Space 92 tracks. From here, you can get even more advanced. You can also change the top note. Now, doing this will result in more of a bass, rolling bass melody format where the top note will lead the melody. So for example, if I wanted to do a melody that works its way up, then back down. From here, we want to do a sidechain to the rolling bass. Now, this is where, again, there's a lot of options for you producers. One, you can create a sidechain where you pretty much try and preserve as much of the roll as you can. What that means is it still sounds like so. Or you could do more of a pumping roll where you're going to put the top to the half here so that you get somewhat of a... Okay, and then you can get lenient with this. But in creating the sidechain, I'm using LFO, which is automating the volume, or you could decide to go with a compressor from Ableton in order to do this. Now, some people look down on this, other people don't really care. I'm on the latter. We're going to turn it into peak mode, which is going to be looking at the peak signal, which is going to be the super dark green that you're going to see here. And then we're just going to route our kick into it. From here, I recommend that you experiment with different tones on your oscillator A by going into the analog section and starting out there. You know, you could go to a Juno and get a heavier space line with the square. From there, you can experiment with layers. Now, all you're going to have to do is add B, oscillator B, into this filter as well. Move this guy to -3 or -2. Okay, you can see it's kind of getting messy. So again, you can implement a retrig if you want. But now, to explain, if we don't have a retrig, you're going to notice that the bass changes a lot. Now, some of you guys may like that, some might not. But again, when you have it like this, you are getting a different sound every time it hits, which you can use to your advantage or you can't. Okay, now what if we decide to go with a new pack Sen is releasing called Paradox Volume 4, which should be out at the end of this month, and you're making straight up this kind of techno. So here we're gonna have this guy at G, and then we're gonna play this big bass. Well, here's the beautiful thing. All you really have to do to the rolling bass is remove some of the low end frequencies, because now we have a big bass in that's part of the kick taking up a lot of space, but we can still have the rolling bass line be suave and fly over. Now, if you're gonna be using the rolling bass like this, I recommend that you experiment. You know, one of the beautiful things about wavetable synths like Serum is that we can add a lot of movement utilizing modulations, which again, with the envelope, we know it's knob turners. Now, if we're going to do that, we can use an LFO here and route it like so. Same thing, a modulation amount. And you see we get this beautiful bass that it's not giving us power, but it's giving us a lot of additive interest. Just honestly sounds better, right? And then from there, we can... From here, this can move up with the modulation. Can add the reverb. On our LFO, now we don't have to go too hard on that sidechain. Now, the final thing I wanted to show you guys in this video is the velocity feature here. This velocity can go on a bunch of multiple things, and you're going to control this modulation, aka it's going to open up knobs for us, with the velocity amount that you set to the programming of the rolling bass. So for example, right now we're going to have it like this. Okay, it's really just hitting at the same spot. But now check what happens if I do this here, where the velocity is at. Okay, now you can control the amount like so. And finally, guys, the last thing with rolling basslines is when you're using them more as a layer, and what this means is that you're cutting out the lows and it's going to be more of an upper layer to the track. You can also apply a bit of unison so that you get more width, aka make the rolling bassline wide. For this, make sure your random face is fully up. Which is another really cool thing that you can do, especially when you have a track that's full and you're trying to add just a little bit more atmosphere, a little bit more interest. Things like this go a long way because, again, once your rolling bassline becomes more of a supportive part of the song, not the main thing, you can really start to get a little bit more brute, a little bit more aggressive with the way you process it. Other than that, guys, if you guys enjoyed this video, make sure to look out for a brand new sound bank I have coming out March 30th, which is Paradox Volume 4. It's going to be a massive techno sound bank with samples and presets. Now, if you guys are stuck making techno melodies and want a bit more of a simplified approach to it, consider watching this video I made on how to make techno melodies easy. It's going to contain a bit of music theory that's very easy to digest, and you should be making techno melodies that sound decent by the end of it. And as always, guys, you want to support the channel, make sure to head over to evilsounds.com. Much love, and you guys have a great rest of your day.